Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and today I'm doing a little bit of a follow-up on the video I did recently on the T54. This is the T54 Lightweight, and he's going to be featuring, or she, as you may feel about the tank, in a gender-neutral place. This is about this tank particularly, but it's also going to talk about some of the things I spoke to when I talked about the T44 and how it's been power creeped. Now, I got a lot of people, not hugely negative. I don't want to create a poo storm or anything, because it wasn't like that at all. Lots of people said, hey, the T44 is not a bad tank. It's a fine tank and all this, and I don't disagree. It's a fine tank. It's just not the tank it was. It's been power creeped. It's been had a lot of its position taken up in the game, its space in the game taken up by tanks like this, the T54 Lightweight. And I'm going to break down the lightweight skill set and what it does well and why it does it. And I'm also going to talk about it directly in competition with the T44. And I think that's an important point to make. And I probably didn't make it well enough originally, that the 44 is fine. You can have a good game in the tank. I've driven the tank. You can do well in it. But for all that, this tank just does pretty much everything the 44 does better. And that means, well, why wouldn't you drive this thing when you can drive this thing instead of driving the other thing? And I'm going to break down the numbers. I'm going to go to the numbers, not just on the real world touchy-feely stuff. I'm going to break down the numbers directly here for you, and then I'm going to play the tank in a certain manner and show you why I find that to be the case and why it's so much more valuable to a team to have a T54 Lightweight on it than it is to have a T44 on it. And then I'm going to show you some gameplay from a couple of people who've sent gameplay in, and you can marvel at their skills and their production and their efficiency and their overall justice. Now, I'm going to bring up a lovely little graphic here, and I'm going to give them love hearts as indicators of whether they win or not in this firepower bracket. Well, it's a wash, firepower. 54 Lightweight has better DPM. It has better aim time. The 44 has slightly better dispersion, and it has better gun depression by 2 degrees. So, in the end, you're looking at guns that have the same penetration numbers, basically the same alpha, all that kind of stuff. It's a wash. Let's talk more importantly about mobility. Now, on the raw stats alone, the 54 Lightweight is better. It has nearly 20 kilometers an hour top speed increase over the 44. It has about 4 degrees of traverse when maxed out, better than the 44. But that doesn't even begin to start telling the story, because the way mobility works in Blitz is pretty crazy. You have 3 hidden stats on terrain resistance. You have hard terrain, medium terrain, and soft terrain. That's what the maps are made up of. The lower the coefficient on those terrain resistance numbers, the better for the tank. The 44's is 1 on hard, 1.2 on medium, and 1.5 on soft. The 54 Lightweight is 0.7 on hard, 0.8 on medium, and 1.2 on soft. What that means is you take those numbers and you multiply those in, you get an effective horsepower per ton number. And the lightweights are off the charts good. The best number you get from the lightweight is 36.3, and the worst you get is 21.2 horsepower per ton. That's on soft terrain. The best number you get from the T44 is 22.3, and the worst number is 14.8 horsepower per ton. So at its best, the lightweight just is streaks and streaks ahead, and at its worst, it's the same as the 44 on its best day. In terms of armor, it's the lightweight again. They're both very, very similar armor profiles. The 44 might have slightly more in terms of raw numbers, but the best armor in the game is not being seen. And the 44 can't do that like the T54 Lightweight can. And you want to see mobility, look at this. You're thundering down the hill, you're doing 70 kilometers an hour, you're up, you're into a traverse around a Tiger P. Now this thing is maxed out, obviously, its gun is traveling, it's tracking really well, it just cannot keep up because you are too quick, you are too light, and yet you still have nearly as good a raw armor profile as the T44. I'm going to show you something in just a second. I'm going to show you a game where I play the T54 Lightweight and I play it as a raw spotter. And there's reasons why I'm doing that. But I mean, watch this. Watch this screaming down the hill here and the massive big power slide. That's just so cool. You tell me you can do that on a T44, get wrecked. No way in the world. The mobility is nuts. It's absolutely insane. I mean, look at me get out of trouble here with this IS-3. watch the tank take off. Watch it absolutely fly out of the blocks and just keep accelerating away as it goes. Despite the fact that IS-3's got the drop on me, there's no way he's going to get to me. We're putting houses between me and him, and we just keep getting we've already gone past the fastest speed the 44 could get to. And I'm not saying the 44 is a bad tank. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the 44 used to be the only guy in its club. It was considered a stupidly good medium because it was the only guy in that club. Look at this mobility, man. Look at it. It's just ridiculous. The 44 is no longer the only tank in that club. It's now been power creeped, and that's what power creep is. So before I started talking about the 54 lightweight, I really wanted to start clarifying what I meant when I said power creep. This is what I'm talking about. Once upon a time, you were the biggest fish in the pond, and now the pond just got a whole lot bigger. And suddenly there's other tanks competing, doing what you were doing, but doing it better. And that's why power creep is such a legit thing. But we love power creep because we just keep getting in these new tanks and going, oh, this tank's fantastic. Forget about the old tank. We're going to drive this new tank. And that's where we come to this. Now, this is something that I think is just light tank personified. I looked at our Waffle Tractor's name at the start of his Black Yamato, and I know that kid can seriously play. He's got nearly 70% win rate. He's got like 1,800 average damage. I've been in game with him before, and he said he wanted to go right, and I'm like, all I'm going to do is basically make sure that our Waffle Tractor has a target at all times. I want him to be on target as much as possible, and you can see he's going to poke down the bottom there, and I'm doing nothing but light tank stuff here. I'm behind a bush. Now, because I'm a light tank, I have light tank camouflage. Because I have light tank camouflage, I can move backwards and forwards, readjust my position, do all that kind of stuff, and it does not break my max camo rating. My camo rating right now is exactly the same as it would be if I was doing 70 kilometers an hour. But I'm behind a bush, so that also exaggerates. It creates a higher degree of camouflage just because of where I am on the map. But again, it's not stopping anyone from getting shots off. I'm just not getting shots myself. And although because of the way the spotting mechanic works, I don't get all the spotting damage, that's something that you can only really do as a light tank. And then I'm just burning straight here when I see an opportunity to clear this T54, put the house between me and the tank that's trying to come up behind me. That's the VK45 Ltw, and then I'm running around here. I get a bounce with my light tank camera, I'm getting a bounce, for God's sakes, ridiculous. There we are, we're ducking back around, and the mobility, just really wrong footing this 45 Ltw. He can't get a shot in. Clear the KV4. Start busting again. I mean, this tank really is just a lovely tank to drive. It's so much fun. Without even skipping a beat, we are straight up the mountain, get another bounce on the T34 and 2. Here it goes with our crappy light tank armor. And then we're going to clear the last tank. And thank you, mother, for the rabbits. I did like 950 damage in that game, but that's a game you can't play in a medium tank unless it's got some really serious camo. Because once tanks get up to it, and there's that black cat, you see the Waffle Tractor, I'm like, I knew I was on track. As soon as I saw that dude in the game, I was like, I am going to do everything I can to spot targets for our Waffle Tractor. So let's have a look at our replays from the subscribers. I mean, thanks very much for sending these in, because it gave me a chance to play the T54 lightweight, and it's like, oh, happy days. Like, it was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure to get out in that monster again. It's such a great little tank. I've never found that damage is something I get a massive amount of in the lightweight or the T44 or the 54 Mod 1. You have these kind of odd games in them where you will build massive amounts of damage, but they are lucky that they can fulfill so many roles in the battlefield. You can play the medium tank role. You can play the light tank role where you are actually running around being a clown, or you can do a little bit of both. And you can see one of the things I find very interesting here is Ranger Trung is running the camo net. You'll see it pop up if he sits still for 3 seconds. He gets the camo net bonus. Now, I go backwards and forwards on this as a perennial light tank player. Like, I'm a mad light tank fan. If I could only play one kind of tank in the game, it would be light tank. When I was doing the count-ins with Triare the other day, I was the bloke that kept turning up in a bat chat. Like, I love light tanks. They really excite me. The form of gameplay, the razor's edge. You know, the stakes are high, the risks are high, but the rewards are just as high. Is going backwards and forwards on that equipment slot. On the one hand, extra camo is amazing. I'm a massive fan of stealth, and camouflage is a big part of the gameplay and my gameplay style. But you've already got massive stealth. Like you have on-the-move camo that's to die for. So your optics are really, really important. So if you're playing as, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but if you're playing as kind of a do damage for you player in light tanks, quite often the camo net is the better option. If you're playing as a spot other targets for other people, then quite often the optics are the option. Now this KV-13 has probably bitten off a little more than he can chew here. He looks like he is struggling, and he's against a tank that is the antithesis of the KV-13. The KV-13 is a tough medium tank. I know it's bizarre. It's got horrible gun depression. Its mobility is middle of the road for the tank type, but its actual armor can be very, very awkward. It's kind of like a medium IS with a little bit more towards, you know, the lighter armor profile, but that's where you're at with it. Still, it's, in my opinion, one of the most unplayed tanks in the game. I'd love to get some numbers on it, but I see very, very few KV-13s out there. Now, I like what Ranger Trung's done so far. He's been really good at picking off the stragglers and turning them into one-on-one confrontations that he can really easily win. The SP1C does not do well in one-on-ones versus tanks like the T54 Lightweight. The SP1C is one of the hardest tanks to drive in Tier 7 in terms of light tanks, because its armor profile is abysmal and its firepower is not exactly making up for it. It used to have a wonderful quick two-shot autoloader, and it got nerfed to hell and back like a bunch of times. It's no longer the tank it used to be. This tank here is a tank that you do not want to be dealing with. It's got a lot better armor profile than you expect the T32, and a lot of people have come a cropper by running against T32s and thinking they can just auto-pen them. It's not the case at all. You've really got to get behind it and work those numbers hard. Ranger Trung, I mean, this is a big damage game. Hey, massive damage game. But he's not stopped firing. But he's just done such a good light tank job here. He has really put himself in a situation to go one-on-one against weaker, more inferior opponents and get side shots into tanks. And he's used his hit point pool brilliantly. And he's come out with a monster 3,500 game, good mastery badge, top gun, and 5 kills. So excellent T54 lightweight game. Really, really good game. This game is like a whole next level. Now, what you can see happening there is T54 lightweight play personified. If you've had problems playing the lightweight, I want you to pay attention to what Search and Destroy is doing here. Every 7.7 seconds, you get a reload. So when you fire, you shoot, and then you pull back, and then you let the gun sit until you get one in the clip, and then you roll forward. Now, the reload time of your camouflage, the reset time of your camouflage is 9.8 seconds. That means that every 9.8 seconds after you fired, your camo resets. Now, because you're a light tank, it will reset even if you're driving along really, really fast. So when you reset your camo and pop out, a normal tank, if you're 150, 200 meters away from a target, they will get spotted as soon as they're physically visible in line of sight to the tank. When you reset your camo on the T54 lightweight, if you're far enough away, you actually won't get respotted until you press the gun again. And that means you can roll out, take a lot of time to recharge and get your shot perfectly online, and then hit the fire button and pull back from like a zero position. So the enemy that is looking at you has nothing. Suddenly you are there firing and already pulling back. And that's the exploitation of that light tank camouflage. And that's exactly what Search and Destroy was doing at the top of the mountain there to that SU-101. And that's a rough gig for an SU-101 to deal with. It's a really tough situation for a non-turreted T to be dealing with, because they've got to have time on target to actually get the shot in. They don't have the turret to pull out, reset, pull out, reset. They have to be set up and ready to go. And that means they're always going to get a trade. There's always going to be a trade. Watch the mobility of this tank. And then that low profile, he is under the gun here. Absolutely. Goes to HE, 308 Alpha. Beautiful, beautiful work there from Search and Destroy. Really, really good work. Now that's 2 more tanks to go through. Now they are tier 8 heavy tanks. That is a tough gig. And he's only got 500 hit points left. But at least he knows there's somewhere around the cap circle. Let's talk about camouflage again. And this is why I gave the T44 and the T54 in that armor battle. I gave the T54 lightweight the edge. Because when you are a light tank and you can't be seen, that is the best possible armor you can get a hold of. And we're gonna see that exploited right here, right now. Now there is a really lovely momentum to this game. He's got to get through 2, but he doesn't blow this. He doesn't blow this by rushing in and trying to duel both in a blazing moment of glory that results in a blazing moment of death. He works around until he gets the spot. There it is. He's spotted the target. Now, because he's a light tank, he can't be seen. He's out spotting the enemy. And because he's the last tank left on his team, he gets a bonus to his spotting range. You can see that down the bottom of the screen there. And that's something a lot of people don't think about. Look at that. 205 meters. He gets to initiate the contact, gets a high roll, and he's just now spotted. Like, that's absolutely perfect light tank play. Reset the camo. The camo is now completely reset. He's got a bonus to his reload speed and his view range because he is the last tank on cap. There we go. He spotted up another tank. He was a little bit too close there, so he's got a little bit of time. He resets that camouflage, goes back, and he's now going to get a shot on the 34 that is at the back edge of the cap. And the 34 realizes this. He pulls out of the cap. Now, some people might say, oh, the 34's done the wrong thing. He hasn't. The 34 doesn't know where the hell that tank is. And there is every chance that if he stays there, he's just going to get hit. It happens anyway. And this is like death by 1,000 cuts. This is how a good light tank driver tears apart, one shred at a time, heavy tanks. And I've done this in light tanks a bunch of times, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's why I love driving light tanks, because it gives you a game mechanic that the rest of the tanks in the game don't have access to. If you're in a light tank and you have a little bit of tactical ability and you just keep moving around, you see he's missing shells, and then he moves into an area where there is camo as well. He's camouflaged up there behind the tree. There he goes. He's got a spot on that T34. T34 has absolutely no chance, but doesn't get hit just because, RNGesus. I mean, they're all giving him advice. He doesn't need it, man. He is playing this absolutely perfectly. He knows he's got a one-shot in his pocket. He's going to clear that T32, and then he has to clear the T34 1776. That's what he's going to do. He's hugging that zone line. He's creating... Look at this distance. That's light tank camo deluxe. Gets a lovely shot in there. Now, he is so far away that he doesn't get spotted by that T34, and this is the value of running optics over camo net. That 34 quite simply can't see him. He does not appear. It is like he's being hit from an invisible tank. This is why, man, you talk about power creep. You talk about T44s. Why would you drive a T44 over this tank? T44 would not have this option. Just quite simply would not have this option. Gets hit once. Oh, is he going to get him on the reload? I think he will. Doesn't want to touch him. If he touches him, he'll get killed. APCR is out. Goes for the shot. Get it? Excellent. Absolutely textbook. 100% textbook like tank play. That was a brilliant game. And as soon as I saw that game, I knew I had to do a video on the T54 lightweight. Plus, I like driving it. 5,000 damage, 6 kills, 1,541 XP. Hats off, search and destroy. Well done, amigo. Thank you very much, everyone who watched. I hope you enjoyed that one. I enjoyed making it. I love playing lights. I'm going to go play some lights right now. Look after yourselves, and as always, stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.